I remember you.
I remember you too. But
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's like
Okay, we will begin again. So I hope you had a chance to meet some new people, to have a coffee, and do whatever else you need to do. We're into the final session of this half-day conference, so thank you for sticking with us. But I think this is going to be really interesting because, again, the first section we heard about the EU perspective. How is that translating really into what's happening on the ground for local energy communities? We've already heard from some of the people who asked very interesting questions, who gave context about their own local circumstances and maybe some issues they're having with like financing and regulation and so on. So let's hear a little bit more about that. So we've, present myself, I'm Darren Turnbull from Housing Europe, which is the European Federation of Public, Cooperative and Social Housing Providers. We represent providers from all over Europe, both inside and outside the European Union. Together, our members provide about 26 million homes across Europe, primarily for low and moderate income families. So our three speakers in this panel, we have Job Svens, Juan Zachary, is correct, and Selvan Elst. I'll introduce you more thoroughly in a moment. So our first speaker is Job Svens. He's involved in the NRG2peers project, working alongside our partners in Spectral in Amsterdam. He's also the founder of JOB, or Joining Objectives, a consultancy which provides expertise on issues of sustainable energy production. So, Job, I give you the microphone and clicker. Yes. You have to just stand in front of the podium here.
Okay, I was asked to maybe describe one example of sharing electricity in communities. I was supposed to design Gig 3. And I want to take them very shortly, if I can. Okay. So the content, 3 exemplary communities, which you want to say something about, which are schoolschip, which you may have heard about before. It's mentioned quite often. The Groene Meat, which is a new one. Kleinburg, which is kind of unknown. I should say, not only because they're doing things illegally. Then legal issues, which is directly connected, of course, to the legal actions of Kleinburg. And recommendations, and then maybe to the European Commission, as you are there. Yes. But first, some words about these communities. Here are the communities themselves. At the left, you see Schoonschip, and the middle, the Groene Meat, which is a kind of newly built community inside the city, where the old houses have to be removed. They built something energy neutral. And then there's the third one, Kleinburg, which is a community of tiny houses. First about Schoonschip. Schoonschip is a floating neighborhood, which consists of 46 households on 30 ships. It started in 2008 and was only realized in 2020 because there was so many legal barriers to be taken. But they managed, and they can find it. This is pretty unique, I think. So we have 46 households in each PPE system. We have each ship with these, and talk to this software.
Has the microphone on?
Okay. There are 30 community-owned batteries. Each ship has its own battery. There is one grid connection. One connection to the public grid, which is designed to pass only 20% of what is connected behind the connection. The total connected power within that community is about 800 kilowatt. The connection is only 100 kilowatt. The community, it has community-owned microgrid, so the grid is owned by the community. It has a centralized energy management system, and I should also say the community will have a good that the grid is also operated by the community. This all happens under the so-called experimental regulation in the Netherlands, where communities were temporarily allowed to own and operate their own grid. Are you sure?
Someone online has the microphone or turn it off.
So now what has Schoonschip achieved? Well, here it is. The community system is the operator of the smart grid. It continuously measures production, consumption, and storage of electricity every 5 seconds. The internal balancing of production, demand, and storage built on this continuous monitoring. Like I said, the total connected power is 800 kilowatts, and the contracted collective connection power is only 100 kilowatts, and all the rest of the consumption is either produced directly or all the local produced electricity is consumed directly, and whatever cannot be consumed will be put into either the batteries or used to provide heat storage through the heat pumps. That is how they managed to run this whole neighborhood on only 100 kilowatt connection. So this sharing, continuous sharing, is actually happening there based on a community-owned energy management system. The second example, Groene Meet, it's a cooperative of 33 households, but it is all connected to the public grid. They did not have the possibility to operate their own grid, so they're connected to the DSO. They have 33 solar energy systems, 33 heat pumps, 6 solar collectors, and no gas generation. One collective solar energy system under preparation and collaboration with the heat and electric vehicle corporation. This community is now working, or actually supplying their own production to a normal energy supplier, but at a different contract, which operates based on the hourly rate of the EVACs. Do you have a battery as one of the owners? Then you can play with this hourly tariffs. And you can even use at some points the moments where the electricity prices are going negative. They work on the supply of electrically produced energy to members via an supplier on a production cost-based PPA. This installation will be installed, I think, spring next year. And then there will be a kind of direct connection between the community members and the PV system through the normal energy supplier, which will buy the electricity at a price which is negotiated with the community and sell it to the members for the same price plus very little extra, which means that you step away from the fluctuations. Let's put it roughly caused by Putin. The next step is to grow from, well, you see that they're growing from 33 to 300, and their ambition is to go from 33 to 300 to 3,000, and then connect this electricity smart grid, which it kind of beholds them, to the heat cooperative, so the heat cooperative distribution system, and the local cooperative electric vehicle party. At that point, the cooperatives will resort under a umbrella cooperative, which operates them all. The third example is the Kleinburg, which is what I would call the so-called Beyond project, because this is a group of 11 houses. Started in 2019, was realized in 2022. It's based on a city tender, which said, who is interested to make a community of, say, 10 to 15 houses without any connection to any grid? And these guys said, let's do that. So they have no water, they have no sewage, they have no gas, and they have no electricity. And they are living there, in the middle of Rotterdam. The problem here is, the problem comes in the next sheet. So it's a private grid between the tiny houses. Tiny houses each have a solar system, and they have one community battery. The problems. This is the right one. Yeah. So what they're doing is they do completely share their production in the battery. Their annual consumption is, don't be shocked, it's 400 kilowatt hours per year. I was there in the evening and we looked at the momentary consumption at that point was 500 watt for 11 houses. I don't know how to do that. But, their solution for the winter, because I should say, during last winter they had a lack of electricity and they secretly connected to a garden connected at the other side of the fence and took some energy there, charged their batteries overnight and survived the winter. They will change that now by stepping to an electric vehicle, which in the winter they will charge at work and discharge at the community. If you go to the tax office, they probably don't know how to handle it, but they know it's wrong. Because the electricity provided any which way from one party to another is due for electricity tax. But they will never find this out and they will not know how to solve it either, as the tax authority. The way we solved this trick, having their own grid and not being connected and not having a DSO operating the grid, is that we are now fighting with the municipality to state that all these real estates, these tiny houses, are not real estate objects. Because they are only there for 10 years, so they are temporary. Jurisdiction says otherwise, but this is a battle that we're going to fight, maybe up to High Court. The idea is that they are obliged to remove everything after 10 years. So it is temporary. However, and not to be there as some kind of forgotten thing, because there is another plan for that area after the 10 years. So we are not illegal yet, as they are together one real estate object, and everything what happens in the real estate object is considered to happen within the installation of that real estate object. So it's not a grid, it's not a private grid, it's not a local grid, it's an installation. And if I say that, and if you believe that, then we're not illegal. This brings me to the legal issues that these communities come across. Schoon Schip has a problem with energy tax. First, we would state, actually, that if you don't pay tax for the electricity that you produce yourself on your own roof, then you should not pay for your tax for your electricity that you produce as a community on your common roofs, if it's all behind one connection. But that's not the way, because these are all real estate objects. That's not the way how the tax office looks at it, and they say we pay energy tax per house, which, if you use little, is the highest tariff that you can get in the Netherlands. So we don't think that's fair if you compare to someone who is on his own. The other one is the right of members to set out and switch supplier. But that's a very difficult one. If you have one connection to the grid, which is operated by one supplier for balancing reasons, then all of a sudden one of these members, or if he sells his house to another, this new inhabitant is free by law, free to say, I want another supplier. And you, as a community, just managed to get this electricity over your grid. I don't care. The law says that I can now change to Vattenfall, and I want that. And that is actually one of the highest risks for Schoonskip at this point. We are now in there as difficult to burn that bridge when we get there or something. I think it's lost, but officially. Well, these are some of the two regulations. Actually, the Schoonskip, the most important ones. GroenLinks has the problem that the DSO does not want to collaborate in setting up smaller connections for that neighborhood. They say, no, we are a DSO, we have the obligation to always be able to supply everybody for his own complete demand at any time. So if we connect a neighborhood, we make sure that all connections like that can be provided with full power if they would at some point ask for the full power all at the same time. And that means that there is an excessive cost plus the point position, which is not necessary, which is paid by the neighborhood. And the other way around, the neighborhood could provide congestion solutions if they said to if the DSO would accept, okay, I'll make a small connection in this neighborhood, so I have more space in another neighborhood. But the DSO does not want to participate in that game yet, and actually, I think they are not within the current law allowed to. Then Glenburg, well, I've discussed that to some extent already, but so they have no right to own and operate their own grid. I explain how we think we solve that. And here also, of course, and it's more stringent here, that the members could also step up. If at some point there's a fight within this group of 11 friends, and one says, I want to go to another supplier, then by law, he can. But physically, he cannot, because there's no connection to the grid. So how is Vattenfall going to bring electricity to this autarkic, isolated grid? But there is something in law which does not work here. So that brings me to the recommendations. One thing, allow more freedom for DSOs to allow overcapacity. Give the DSOs the freedom to not to fully stick to the obligation that they can always supply 100% of the demand if all parties ask their electricity at the same time. If a community connected to the public grid makes the agreement among each other to share the electricity in a smart way, to have their neighborhood battery, then the DSO should be able to say, okay, I go to 50% of the total connected value, or even less. I should say that the first step has been made in the Netherlands. The grid code has just been changed. That if there's enough flexibility available, the DSO should consider the possibility of going up to 150% of what his grid can technically accept. So if the transformer can handle 100 kilowatt, then he should allow a total connection of 150 kilowatts behind that transformer if there is enough flexibility available behind that transformer, which can assure him that the current going through the transformer will never exceed 100. There have been some experiments already with that, but actually Schoonskip goes to 800%, as I just showed. They have a total connected power of, what was it, 800? It goes beyond 8, and they are only connected by 100. So we can go much further. But this is the first step. Good. The second is allow households to voluntarily deprive of legal protection against supply failure or lock-in for power supply. Actually, if as Schoonskip, as a community, when installed, when realized, decides that if you live there, you have a lock-in, And that's the deal we made together, because we want to supply ourselves. We want to stick to this low connection value. That is our business case. Then these communities should be allowed to say that. Right now they are not. And that's what happens at the Groene Meet. The Groene Meet says, we as a community of 30 household, we accept the connection to the grid, which is half of what we have connected behind it. And the DSO said no. Because I should be able to supply all of you the full power at any time. So give the DSO the freedom to say, okay, if the community signs that they are responsible for their balancing within that subgrid, then I am willing to make a small connection to that neighborhood. And the other is the supply failure, because that's actually connected. Schoonschip has taken the risk that at some point the total production and storage and demand shift options within Schoonschip do not work. And at some point, people may have to take the bullet for some time. But we are now protecting people against their own will for something that they are willingly accepting. And Schoonschip, these people have decided that at some point, we want to do this, and we will see what happens if we get going. This is a private grid, but in the public grid, this is not possible. So please allow people who have the guts to take more responsibility for themselves instead of enforcing external responsibility. That's my last recommendation. Oh, and for you, please put this in the directives.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to our next speaker, which is Juan Sacri from Sapiens Energia in Valencia. So he's the president of Sapiens Energia. Sapiens Energia supports and co-develops local energy communities to use, produce, manage, and move with clean, local, and affordable energy. So I'm looking forward to hear, especially on that question of affordability, how you're achieving what you're achieving. And also, I really like the title of your presentation, which actually was an idea from me. So, you know, I think this is something we say in English, and I think it works, but also in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Thank you for inviting us to participate. I'll try to share with you what's happening in Valencia region. That's a lot, but with a lot of challenges as well. So just a short presentation about us. We are very young as a renewable energy cooperative. We are part of Rescoop as well. We formed in January 2020. You might remember that date because previous of the COVID, and now we are 16 people working on the cooperative. So we are a non-profit, non-profit by the regional government entity, and now we are requesting kind of public utility just to enlarge the impact we create. So our activity is based in, I'll explain a little bit, but we have 12 self-consumption on PV installation in different areas. So by our internal regulation, we can only act 50 kilometers from Canet Merguel, where is our base. So when we started, we thought always on the model of the renewable energy community. So the proximity and not big companies in our organization. So, but I was explaining a little bit in the break. We develop our own, let's say, production facilities, but we help also municipalities to start its own energy community. Mainly, we're using the association legal form because it's easy to start and less procedures. It's easy to, let's say, make a collaboration agreement with the municipality. Later on, of course, if the ambition is bigger, we develop a cooperative or another SPV to do that. So, as I was saying, in Valencia region, usually by the end of this year, there will be around 50 new energy communities.
Wow.
It was a political agreement when we developed this strategic plan for 2030, co-created by the different actors in Valencia, and if that is the same also later on in the Repower EU, one energy community for each town or each municipality. So just to start, so this is the map right now, and these are only the ones we are working on. This is Valencia region, as you can see. So Castellón, Valencia, and Alicante. So this is where we work, where we are directly involved as Sapiens. So already 10% of the municipalities of the Valencia region we have energy community. So it's amazing what's happening, and this is because of the support of the IBACE, so it's the regional government that's putting subsidy scheme that it's financing between. We are getting 50-60% of the investment by the government. So this is how we are getting in. So I'm gonna show you a few examples. This is just PV self-consumption installation that we used already the structure. So it's the energy community of Barrio Los Monasterios is a residential area, and this is the first installation that we have. So we also these two documents are key to this the implementation of this strategy. First of all, we worked in 2020 for the strategic plan, and later together with the regional government, and then later on. As we were facing a lot of problems to develop the energy communities in the municipalities, we created a guide with all the toolbox, all the contracts, everything. So all the procedures internal for the local government, for the community to set up, etc. And now, as you can see, the growth is exponential since last year. So with these two documents. So. The activities, so my idea is just to show a few activities that the energy community can develop, as you already know, so we can become a supplier or trader. We can, so these are real pictures from our side, we can become a producer. This will be a community-owned energy power plant. It's called it's a renewable energy community in Picasen that combines, as you can see, the solar with agriculture. So agri-PV. Okay. So of course we have there as well electric vehicle shared mobility cooperative. It's called Alterna. We work together, so with the intention of where there is an energy community, there is also service of shared mobility. So always looking at the synergies between the projects. And the collective self-consumption, another one. So this is together, we developed together with municipality. So what they wanted, so what they asked me to explain is the barriers we are facing. And just to spread, before you have to understand which is our scheme, so how we work. And so I'm going to explain two of those, the two schemes we are working. So collective self-consumption and power plants, community-owned power plants. Okay, so this is the picture of the swimming pool of my town, Canal del Berenguer, and we have the regulation just to share energy with the, let's say, the neighbors here. We have the limitation of 500 meters radius. So, and within this 500 meter radius, we don't have to pay grid taxes. No transportation taxes, no DSO taxes. So it's like you have your own installation on your roof. So this is very good. It has a lot of possibilities. In some areas, 500 meters is a lot. In some others, is not. So there is a lot of dispersed, let's say, houses. Or you have to stay connected to the same transformer. So and it do not apply the 500 meters. It's one or the other. So. And you have to know that the energy sharing of this PV installation is fixed. You have a fixed coefficient, so a fixed percentage. You have 10%, you have 10% today at hour 1, 2, 3, and 3 months after. So the dynamic or the hourly sharing is not, it's already approved, but it's not in place. So just to understand how we play with this. So challenges I want to share with you for a PV self-consumption. So there is no standard procedure for the DSO in place, or it should be, but depending on which technician is evaluating let's say the request for connecting, they have different point of views. So every time we ask for a connection, we always work important under 100 kilowatts in this. So, but it's very difficult to get the connection on that. The industry, so the regional government has to approve this installation before we get it to operation, and they have lack of people, and it's kind of a bottleneck. So we cannot put the installations into operation. We have right now 18 waiting for approval. So it's quite not a lot, and there is no data of the capacity of the grid. So if you want to plan or to develop new facilities, we always have to invest first. So we have to write a complete project and ask for a permission to the grid. And remember, under 100 kilowatts. So it's something that's not really operational. You have to take the risk of it. So getting the installations into operation is very difficult right now in Spain. So I think all the parties are, we are pushing, but it's not, it's not quickly enough because some people is just abandoned. So it's saying, all right, I don't want to participate in this because it's too slow. So they are putting their own facilities or installation. In the second model, as you can see, we have already 50 kilowatts in place. We have the dragon fruit inside of the facility, and we work together with Picas and Solar and Tranesol as another developer there that we work always to develop the power plants between 1 and 5 megawatts, combining solar and agri, because the ground is also a scarce resource, and we think it's a good opportunity to do it this way. So, just to understand maybe a little bit, yeah, the energy producer is like another wind farm or another power plant like in Europe. So, which are the challenges for a renewable energy community without power plant? So, we have to, even if let's say the members of the community are 1 or 2 kilometers far away from the power plant, or 10, they have to pay full taxes. So the transmission taxes, and we don't use the transmission system to consume this energy, and also the DSO taxes. It makes sense, that one, but not the second one. So that makes the price of the electricity, or the price of the kilowatt hour higher than the self-consumption model. So in the second one is that to approve this kind of projects between 1 and 5 megawatts, it's in our opinion, it's distributed energy. So there are too many actors that they have to say, okay. So it takes to develop 1 megawatt in Spain 3 years right now. 1 megawatt for the people. It's not for a big supplier or to make a financial one. No, it's for the people, self-consumption. And yeah, what I said. So it's almost everything from my side. So also, although the difficulties, there is some light at the end. So I hope this year we get into operations all these power plants that are supported by local and regional funds, and all the people is staying to save energy, to get power into the system, and that we can work on it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Juan, for that very informative presentation, and good to see that there is some light at the end of this one. Because it's easy to be negative sometimes, but to be optimism as well. In fact, well, at least visually, your presentation begins very optimistically with a nice sunflower. So let's see if it continues that way. So our last speaker, but certainly not least, is Sven van Elst, who is joining us this morning from the Flanders region here in Belgium. As we saw earlier, Belgium has 3 regions which have a lot of autonomy. So he's speaking for Flanders, not for Belgium as a whole. Sven is the managing director of Aster, which is, as far as I know at least, unique in the European Union, where Flemish social housing companies have joined together. To invest in renewable energy. In this way, Aster aims to reduce the energy bills of social tenants while contributing to a better planet. So, Sven, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Like it has already been said, we are in a kind of a special situation. And first of all, before I can start telling you something about Aster, I just briefly want to say something about social housing in Flanders. Not too much, but just to get the context. In Flanders, we have something like 180,000 social dwellings. A large number of them are single-family homes. So, of course, we do have apartment buildings as well, but a lot of them are single-family homes. It's about 7% of the Flemish building stock, which is not much in comparison with other European countries, where this percentage is much higher. We still have 120,000 families on the waiting list. Today, our sector is completely in transformation. There are some 132 social housing providers, and by the end of this year, perhaps mid next year, only 4 housing providers will be left. Okay. Yeah. And of course, another big challenge we have are the climate 2050 goals. We have this stock of 180,000 social dwellings, approximately some 100,000 buildings, and we definitely have to renovate. We have to start renovating them. So that's the context in which we are working. Now, what is Aster? Well, it all started back in 2018. That's not that long ago. There was a growing climate awareness. We had to do something about climate. It became more and more clear that we had to take our responsibility. And we also noticed that there was an increasing energy poverty with our tenants. People having or living in a social dwelling are living there for a certain reason. Of course, they have a low income. So we saw that there was a growing energy poverty. So we said, as a sector, we have to do something about it. You know? And fortunately, we very soon found out that we had a quite large potential of roofs to produce solar energy. We had a lot of assets already there. They were our own, or at least the part of the social housing companies. So we had our assets available. So what did we do? VVH, which is the umbrella organization of the social housing companies in Flanders, they applied for an ELENA project funded by the EIB, and we had two main goals. First of all, we were obliged by the EIB to invest 10 million euros in solar panels on existing social dwellings, so not new ones, but on existing ones, for two main reasons, of course: a better climate on the one hand, and also a second, not less important, at least at the same important levels, to tackle energy poverty, but with private funding. So not subsidized by the government, by the Flemish government or whatever, but with private funding. And our second goal was we had to establish something, an SPV, to realize our first goal. So we started with it, and I'm not going into details what happened in the following 2 years, but on the 26th of October 2020, a date I will never forget because it's also my wife's birthday, we had the establishment of a cooperative company with 64 shareholders, all social housing companies, and VVH, so the umbrella organization. No private companies, no individuals, just only the social housing sector. Today we have 7 staff members, and we work with a number of external contractors. And what is the main goal of Aster? It's very broad. Yeah? It's to support social housing companies in Flanders in making their housing stock more sustainable. And sustainable in the broadest sense. Yes, it means energy transition, but also durability. It has to do with renovation, with energy supply. So it's very, very broadly defined. Now, where are we now? Well, we have started to activate the solar potential of our members, yes, our shareholders. Our target is to install 150 megawatt peak of solar panels by the summer of 2026. We had our first test projects a month ago in August, and we started the full rollout this month. So it's all brand new. By 2027, we will be able to produce on a yearly basis something like 130 gigawatt hour of green solar energy, all on the roofs of social buildings. Now, in total, we will have something like 50,000 residential installations with an average capacity of 3 kilowatt peak. We assume a self-consumption of 30%, which means that we will inject 70%. Today, we focus on measures to increase the self-consumption of our social tenants, because it's the Flemish government that decides on the tariffs. So we can't decide it ourselves. It is the Flemish government that says, if you have person A or person B, those are the tariffs of this solar power you sell as a social housing company. And why is that important, and why don't we have a problem with that? In this way, it is absolutely guaranteed that our social tenants will always have the lowest prices on the market. So they will have at least up till now something like a 30% gain on their energy bill for the solar power they will use. Not for all the power, of course, but only for the solar power. So, but anyway, 30% these days, it's quite a lot of money. Now, knowing all this, we were confronted with a dilemma. And what is our dilemma as a sector? The benefits of the solar energy is only for 1 out of 3 of the social tenant households. We have something like 180,000 social dwellings. We can install something like 50,000 installations. But what do we do with all the other social tenants? And like I said it there, solidarity is an essential part of our DNA. We want to help all social tenants. All our social tenants are equal for us. So it's very hard to say, you're lucky, and well, you're not lucky. That's not what we want to do. So we started looking for solutions. How can we solve this dilemma? And we came up with two ideas. One is the solar bonus, and the other one is energy communities, and that's why we are here, of course, today. What is the solar bonus about? Well, actually, it's very, very simple. The solar bonus means sharing the profits from selling injected solar power to a commercial energy supplier amongst those social tenants without direct access to solar power. So we consume self-consumption something like 30%, so we inject 70%. We have an agreement with a commercial energy supplier and we sell. Not on a quarterly basis or a daily basis, we have it on a monthly basis. So we can work out with all the peaks. And that's, well, for us it was the best way to negotiate contracts. Today, unfortunately, and I'm a bit ashamed to say so, this is a very profitable model. Why? Because there is a war going on and prices are high. Today, must be careful with what I'm saying, but it's even more profitable to inject all the solar power because the Flemish government says we will limit the tariffs for the social tenants, which is of course obvious, but we can earn more money by selling our solar energy to a commercial energy supplier. Of course, that's today. We don't like it, really, believe me, we don't like it from a social perspective. And tomorrow, well, who knows what will happen? I think we all hope that the war will end soon and that Europe can become independent of foreign or not European energy suppliers. So the solar bonus, it works for now, but it's not a very durable mechanism. So we started looking for something else. And then we come to the energy communities. Now, for us, energy communities, it's something completely new. We don't have, well, we do have a legal framework, of course. We have the energy communities of citizens, and we have renewable energy communities, like you all know. We have had some small-scale test projects, but to be honest, we don't have much experience with that. Now, one of my ideas about making this kind of projects is you don't need to have all the experience yourself. You have to start looking for partners who do have experience, and that's what we try to do. So, are there any opportunities for social housing? Well, to my opinion, yes, absolutely. Because of the main ideas of energy community to me are everybody can join, and yes, of course, we want in the first phase include all social tenants, which makes 180,000 families in Flanders. In the second phase, why not include other citizens as well? So we can make a very large community. You need a legal entity as a mediator. I heard from other people that it's not always easy to make these legal entities. It's sometimes very complex, but we do have next year 42 social housing providers who already are a legal entity. And there is a connection between the social housing company on the one hand and the social tenant on the other hand. Okay? So that's not the end, but that's already a starting point. There is some connection. And of course, one of the main ideas is also to exchange in a collective way energy. And what we want to do is we want to optimize self-consumption. So yes, we believe that it's absolutely worth exploring because actually it's just simple mathematics. If 1/3 of our social tenants uses 30% self-consumption solar energy, then 3/3 will use something like 90%. Because all social tenants, of course, there is not something like a prototypical social tenant. But because of the mass number, these 180,000 families will all have almost the same profile. So if we can share with more people, it will become more and more easy to self-consume whatever we produce over time. So we will start with a project, this project later on in October, with 30 production facilities, something like 60 households. But we will collaborate with, and it has been mentioned here before, I think by one of you, we will collaborate with ELIA. And who is ELIA? Well, ELIA is the high voltage grid operator. There are some experiments for the Flemish people in the room here with Fluvius. Fluvius is the organization concerned with the distribution of electricity. But ELIA is the organization, it's on a Belgian level, who is responsible, amongst other things, of course, for power supply in general, but they are also partly or mainly responsible for the balancing of the grids. And they are very interested in a cooperation because we will start producing on 50,000 different locations. Yeah? You can imagine that that will have an impact on the grid. Yeah? So they are quite eager to find out what's possible. And for us, we don't want to be involved in balancing, not at all, because we are social housing providers. And by accident, I could say we can start producing energy, but we don't want to be involved in balancing in no way. So we will work together with a commercial energy supplier, only one for now, but the idea is in the end to come up with a tool. And I saw on one of the presentations, blockchain technology. What we want to do, we want actually to make a virtual energy community. Not only one, but 42 of them. Why 42? Because by mid next year, there will be 42 social housing companies active in Flanders. So in our concept, why not make 42 energy communities? The smallest one will have at least 1,000 families. The largest ones will have something like 23,000 families in one community. And if they start sharing with each other, and then in the second phase, we make it possible for private citizens to become part of these communities, and local municipalities can become part of these communities, then we think we have a model that will definitely work. But of course, our first concern are our own tenants. Those are the people we want to help first. So, of course, there are pitfalls, there are some technical restraints, there are administrative complexities, there are some financial issues, but fortunately we already have a bank loan, we do have the money, we do have an installer, so we can already start operating. And for now, we just inject what we don't use. But the main idea is in the future to share with as many people as possible. So I just wanted to say, well, in my opinion, nothing is impossible. Okay, there are constraints, there are problems, but problems have just been invented to be solved, in my opinion. So, okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to say about the Flemish situation.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much. So I have one question myself, and then we'll open to the floor. And it's something that Job actually mentioned in his presentation, which is this issue of people who have the right to step out, as you said. So people can join the energy community, but then at a certain point, maybe they think it doesn't work for them anymore, or maybe they get a better price somewhere else, and they say, okay, I'm leaving. But in the example you gave, they don't have a grid. So how can you leave a grid if you're not actually on it? So it creates some difficulties. But in a broader context, it's an important question. So when we talk to our members, particularly in Germany, they're very, very enthusiastic, the cooperative housing structures that exist there, to become energy producers and suppliers to their tenants. One of the issues that they have is that within their rules, in terms of what they can spend money on, what they can invest in, they have this very low risk approach. So they can't take anything that isn't going to be, let's say, a certain investment for them. So it isn't going to give them the money back that they've invested and so on. So this means that they effectively are blocked from producing electricity because it's a risky position. You can have a situation where you put solar panels on roofs for the benefit of your tenants, you establish an energy community, then in a few years people leave, and you end up with this stranded capital, right? Where you have invested, the people step out of the community, and then the community maybe falls apart, and you have this situation. Okay, well, are we now producing electricity just for the private grid, and we're excluding our tenants? It's a problem that they have. So it seems if you have a good situation maybe in Flanders, I'll come to you first. But from all three of you, I'd like to understand: is this really a problem? This kind of people stepping out, or do people generally have satisfaction with the process, and therefore they remain part of the community? And what contingencies do you have in place in the event that a significant number of people do leave? Do you end up with this situation where maybe you have stranded capital investment in PV and batteries and so on that could become quite a liability for you? I know you spoke earlier that you're the personal guarantor of your cooperative, so maybe this could be something particularly important for you that maybe keeps you awake at night. I don't know. So yeah, Sven.
Well, in my opinion, there is an energy community plus, and an energy community plus, I think, we are social housing providers, and I think we always have to involve in one way or another the commercial energy supply. Because yes, batteries can be helpful in the near future, and yes, we're also thinking about including electric mobility, cars, bi-directional batteries, whatever. But maybe, this year we will have a winter in Flanders. It has been some time ago since we had a winter in Flanders, but if it becomes cold and dark, we will still need energy. And what we think of is, let's involve one or two or perhaps all commercial energy suppliers, and make sure that they play their role and let us play our role. So, and those can be, of course, the nuclear power plants, energy suppliers, but also what we prefer, of course, is renewable energy power plants suppliers. But work together. That's my idea about it. And then there is no problem any longer, because our tenants will have there will be one access point, and with two entrances, one from the solar panels, where they directly use energy from produced on their roofs. But on the other hand, there will always be this connection with a commercial energy supplier who will at all times supply energy to the people. Not like in the examples you gave, where people can have no electricity at a certain.
I would like to say something about housing, social housing companies also, and the solution for problem there. We had that with then it was about subsidy, actually, and you had to be a member of that community to receive the subsidy. And the subsidy was organized by a cooperative organized by the social housing company, and the whole business model was based on that. And there you had exactly the risk that you were describing, that some tenant would leave and a new one would come in and would say, I'm not interested. And that would reduce the subsidy, which actually then makes the whole case invaluable. The solution that we found there is that if you rent a dwelling at this social housing company, you have standard, you all become an automatic member of the community. Like we have the community of owners, the owners associations, where you have this fee that you have to pay. And that fee was, I think, reduced to €1 per year or per month or whatever, very low and much lower than what you would get back in free electricity. But you had to do this obligatory thing because, like you say, some people just are against. And even if they find out that it's financially profitable, they say, yeah, well, I don't trust the housing company. It's just a housing company. And Dutch are Dutch. So it's
Not only Dutch.
the percentages, no, but it's maybe even higher. So there is that solution for social housing, that it is just part of the rent.
Just to add something, in our case, the selling points are cheaper because we have a subsidy of 60%. After the OPEX costs are less because it's not the same maintaining then PV installation than one. But then it becomes only procedures. And so far, we are not able to get to the end, and this is the most disappointing one. So financing, okay, let's say an average house needs 3 kilowatts. 3 kilowatts in our scheme is 1,800 euros. It's almost nothing. I mean, for an average family, and we can finance it via commercial bank or whatever kind of consumption loan or something like that. The high interest, 7 or, but anyway, it is you can justify it. So challenges are, let's say, big in this case, but are solved if we can show the people that the energy community works. So this is the main challenge right now, that we have a lot of PV installations ready to start operation, but we are not able to deliver the benefits and the selling benefits to the customers, or the partners or the members of the community.
You can hold on to the microphone.
Gladly. So, yeah, one question here. So,
No, first, I just want to echo what you said on the possibility of the tenants to leave a community or to leave the share of renewable when it's at individual building level. This is a common problem for also private rented sector. So that's why they are often careful on investing in renewable because of that. And this is one of the questions I wanted to ask Achille this morning. It's good. But this is really a problem with consumer protection issues, because of course consumers have a right to live, a right to choose their provider. But in this specific case, this is something we discussed for years. This really creates a real problem. So indeed, the idea of having this combined rent with electricity or heat is one solution, but in the present situation might even be less a solution for a sector, but still it's something we are looking into, and indeed it's a very German problem. But you mentioned the tax, you mentioned grid tax, so I was wondering if it was only like the regional regulation, and I was also wondering from the others, because the taxation issue is a big issue as well when it comes to produce your own energy. You had this story in Spain 2 years ago when you had this what we call the tomato tax, the right to make the tax on producing your own tomato, basically.
The sun tax.
Yeah, the sun tax when you were taxed for producing and using your own energy. So I wonder how it works with energy communities in general in different member states. So I guess it's one of the main barriers if you have specific tax. So.
Well, we don't have so far. We don't have a specific tax for self-consumption. So the energy community is the one that owns the PV self-consumption installation. But so and the members are not. So the one paying taxes for the activity is the energy community. So for the self-consumption, there are no taxes right now.
In the Netherlands, actually everybody pays energy tax, and it's extremely high. Actually, it is of your electricity cost. It's about 70%, 67% of what you pay for a kilowatt hour is energy tax. The only tax that you don't have to pay is the tax, or is the only electricity for which you don't pay tax is what you produce yourself and stays behind the meter. But any community, peer-to-peer or community-to-peer or whatever form of transport of electricity results in supply at an address, results automatically in energy tax.
And this is not prohibitive.
No. But we are now actually working on one trick, which ministries are not resolving because they don't know the answer, and that is the so-called mandelig. It is dual-owned systems. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of houses which are built together, and the wall between them is kind of dual-owned. It is, so it's not owned by a third entity, by a community that we have together. And now we have a PV system which is community owned, but not owned. The community is not an entity. So you are partially owner of that electricity. So the electricity produced there is your own. The tax office said that is not true. And we say, yes, it is true. And we went to the agency, and the agency said, well, actually, you are right. The tax office is wrong. So then it goes to both ministries, economic affairs and finances, and they are working on it for a year already. They cannot solve it, but that could be a way out. But this actually demonstrates how drastically the tax office wants to stick to everybody pays tax when electricity comes into your house, one way or another. And our veto is actually that this electricity is not supplied because it was their own. But even that stops. So that is the next innovation that we really would like, that communities are regarded as private PV owners using the electricity behind the meter. So we're not there that far.
But Yvonne, there are two things you have to take into consideration. Aster owns PV panels. And we have an agreement with the social housing companies that all the electricity produced by these PV panels is theirs. They pay a fee for it, for the investment and whatever, and maintenance or whatever. But all the electricity is theirs, and they sell it partially 30% to the tenants and 70% to the grid, to an energy supplier. They appoint us to do all the negotiations and to make the deals. So we have a mandate to do that. And the VAT administration said, okay, as a social housing company, you sell electricity to your tenants, so there is VAT on it. And today, VAT percentage is the same as for all citizens in Flanders, so it's 6% VAT. Apart from that, you have indeed the transportation or the distribution costs, and that's a burden. Yeah. If we want to deliver underneath a roof, there is no cost at all. But if you want to provide next door the neighbor with electricity, we have to pay these costs. Now, we are still thinking about that, but in my opinion, we can't make a distinction between social tenants. They're all equal, they're all the same. So in my opinion, I think that a social housing company can say to a tenant who is directly connected to the solar panels on his roof, that's your price. Let's say, for example, 20 € per kilowatt hour. And if they supply the neighbor, who is also a social tenant, with 1 kilowatt hour, the price can only be 20€. And the distribution cost has to be paid by the social housing company. But that's something we have to convince a few people of that, of course. But I think that's well, we have to pay it anyway. Yeah, as soon as we start using the grid, you have to pay for the grid. Yeah, that's obvious.
Now, maybe I should clarify the Dutch system a bit more. We in the Netherlands, up to last year, now it's going sky high, but up to last year we paid about 22 cents per kilowatt hour, of which 6 cents for the kilowatt hour, 12 cents energy tax, that's not VAT, that's energy tax. Then you get the VAT over both, so you pay VAT over tax. Then you come up to something like 22 cents. All that, and that is separate from the grid and the transport cost. That is a separate thing because, and I think it's good to explain here because in the Netherlands, a lot of people, if you start this discussion, say, yeah, then who pays the grid cost? Well, that's a separate subject. Mm-hmm. This tax, this 12 cents tax per kilowatt hour goes directly to the state and is used to make roads or whatever.
I think we're running out of time a bit, but I think Josh, you had your hand up, or is it?
Yeah, I was kind of getting back to the consumer rights question, but if somebody else wants, I don't want to dwell on that too much, so.
But, well, let's see, are there any other questions from the floor? Dirk, yes?
I have a question for Sven. So I'm the president of Rescue.
I know.
I'm a board member of Cooperatives Europe. And so Housing Europe is another sector in Cooperatives Europe. And my question to you is, with the whole construction, if I'm right, the Flemish government forced the social housing cooperatives, because they were all cooperatives, I think, or most of them,
Big face.
that to change it to, that happened, yeah.
It's going on.
It's going on. So my question is, will you adhere to the cooperative movement or not? So that's my question. Because I hear you say commercial energy supplier, we also have cooperative energy suppliers. So my question is, will you adhere to the community energy movement or not? That's my question.
After today is a corporation.
Cooperative.
Yeah, a cooperative. Cooperative corporation, indeed. So yes, in Aster, within these 64 shareholders, they work along the cooperative principles. That's for now. And we have to think if we want to include individuals, then we have to see how we can extend these cooperative principles if they want to, if we want to include them in the corporation, of course. But we're not there yet. Yeah? That's something we have to think about, because in the end, let's be ambitious. How can we manage 180,000 families of social tenants? Social tenants are also people like you and me, but also not people like you, because sometimes they have some mental issues. They don't always speak Dutch. So how to include those people, that will be a major challenge, I think. But I think we should try.
Okay, so time for one more question, so I'll come back to you, Josh.
Yeah, sure. I remember I was reading the recent Dutch legislation, and it gets back to this consumer rights. How much flexibility do we give to the consumer to, I don't know if I would say give away, but relax their own rights because they enter into this relationship knowingly. It seems that there have been some exceptions made for businesses on this, and I'm just wondering to what extent that debate has filtered into the household consumer discussion, if at all. And I don't think anybody from Bayuk or any of the consumer organizations, because I feel like if we're all talking in this room, obviously the commission's not here, but the consumer rights groups, if they're not here, I'm sure they would have something to say about it. So I'm wondering, is this a conversation that has started either at the national level or even up here in Brussels?
Not at those levels. Actually, much more far down, because there has been an experiment in the Netherlands where 13 companies wanted to be connected. They had the deal that there would be enough connection power available. They all built their companies, and they found out that only 6 could be connected, 7 not. And they had done $1 million investments, $1 million investments, but they couldn't do anything. And there, the deal was made that these companies amongst each other would settle their energy consumption. All these companies which were not connected got a connection, but a zero transport deal. But they would not check. They would just allow this neighborhood to share the electricity between these companies. And that has been the first step. And based on that experience, there are now discussions with something which comes just slightly closer. It's a very vague thing, because this is one of those experiments, another one than Schoonschip. And here it is 60 households behind it. But as the main connection is something like a business connection, and that's a single connection, everything behind that is called installation, because that's the experimental rule trick. And they are now playing with allowing this community with 60 households to see if they can settle it themselves. And that is with the help of the municipality of Amsterdam. And that will bring us probably to the next step where this may happen at some point in a grid.
Is that in a sandbox? Do they have a sandbox?
Yeah, we don't have a sandbox anymore, but that is one of the things that we are fighting for with a lot of people to bring back the sandbox. Because the experiment regulation was a sandbox, regulatory sandbox, and you need to have that back because we explained that the technology and our problems are moving so fast that you cannot imagine that the legislation that is introduced today is still valid 3 years from now. So you have to have something with which you can experiment with small changes in the rules so that the legislation keeps up with what's happening. So we're fighting for that.
Okay, we're almost out of time. I'd like to finish on time because, as I said, there's another session after this. So for the NRG2peers partners, please hang around. We need to discuss. For the rest of you, thank you for attending. We will hear one more time before we leave from Simona, who has about 5 minutes to give us her impressions of the day and to wrap up. Simona, can you hear us? We hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me too.
Sorry,
I
actually,
really want
round of applause for the two panelists.
Yes, indeed, thanks. And I really wanted to congratulate to all of you and to the panelists for this important insights and for keeping up the content of this conference. We know that during these weeks, there are a lot of events around energy communities in Brussels and everywhere in general. We have a lot of hearings about energy communities. However, we really wanted to bring this conference to a very high level. And that's the reason why we had this 2 panels focusing indeed onto the main focal points, so the European level and the national context. So really thank again all the panelists and everyone participating with their questions. I think one of the main outcome of these 2 panel sessions is indeed the fact that we see still a lot of barriers for the implementation of energy communities, or however peer-to-peer mechanisms into the national context. If we see the example, if we follow and read the examples that have been presented today, especially in the second session, but also the experience we have from NRG2peers, we know indeed that the transposition of the RED II directive into national law sometimes is still not enough. It's a lot more complicated than that. Yes?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that indeed the transposition of the RED II directive into national law is still not enough. And sometimes it's a lot more complicated than that. We really need to face at this moment in time how to make it operative within our member state national law, with the different incentives, with the different mechanisms, with the different configuration of the energy grid, like we were hearing today from the Spanish context, the Dutch context, and then in the regional context that can arise, like the Valencia case or the Flanders. So this creates deadlocks, and of course it's not anyone's fault. It's not that the Commission is not doing it right. It's not that the national context is not working, but in this transposition there is a lot to do. So like we always say, the devil stays in the detail, and that's really the case I see here. And this is where NRG2peers and projects like this fostered by European Commission are really trying to find their space, where we're needling our teeth on the juicy content, and really trying to bring up some innovation and some material that can be shared with some usefulness. So I was inspired doing this presentation from you to just share one final slide that's that would summarize somehow what's what we were saying today. But I will share this other screen. Sorry about that. Yes, there you are. Yeah, I really wanted to leave with this in mind, with this slide in mind. And when I was asked to wrap up the session, of course, I really wanted to wait for the content of the sessions. But if I want to summarize what we've said today, and really the role of NRG2peers in this transition, the first point is that we need to grow smart. So we know that this energy transition requires and allows us to use a lot of digital tools apart from what the legislation says. So we really need to use and make leverage of all the supporting tools that we have. The digital transition is there, and we cannot avoid taking this as an opportunity. So that's the first leverage. And with NRG2peers, we really want to demonstrate how we can grow smart to enable energy communities at a wider national and European level. The second point is enhancing people. We've heard many times today that indeed it's not just about technological transaction, it's not about the type of technology you implement, it's about enhancing people, convincing people that they have the right tools and they have the legal framework to act to enable projects. We've seen in NRG2peers, but also outside our personal practices as consultants and as professionals, that many times there are people in the lead that needs to be enabled with this knowledge. And that's indeed what we are trying to do, from the bottom up to the top down of this process. So from the individual citizens to stakeholders and institutional roles up in the scale. So we really need to enhance people with knowledge. And third, of course, is to make it simple. It's not obvious, but what we heard today is indeed that there is still a lot of bureaucratic going around and documentations that needs to be involved, and a lot of knowledge as well that needs to be translated in very, very simple material for the main stakeholder and the decision makers to enable this transition. So also in that, we hope that with NRG2peers and with our guidelines, both at the national level and then translating those at the European context, will help to make this transition right. And we will make an impact in this global effort. So with this, yeah, I really wanted to leave you with these three messages. I hope you can take it away with you. I again thank you for the excellent discussions, for the panelists to join us and to make this NRG2peers second European conference a success. I really am waiting for you to meet you all in person for the final conference, and there we hope you are able to share our final outcomes, and let's see if we were able to make this three mantra reality, at least in 1 year from now. So again, I thank you all. We managed to stick to the timing with a couple of minutes of delay. And I leave it back to Dara, to the audience. And again, a really warm thank to everybody.
Okay. Well, that's it from our session for today. But as we know, this is Sustainable Energy Week. There are many discussions about this kind of topic happening. So I can look forward just very briefly to Emmanuel to discuss what is happening on Friday.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that on Friday, if you like the topic and you are in Brussels in this very same building, I think there is an all-day event organized by ICLE, so the local authorities. They will look at this specific aspect of repower, so one energy community for 10,000 inhabitants. So it is feasible. And many of the speakers here today, or some at least I know from Rescoop, you will be there. We decided as well to join as NRG2peers. So we will also be there, and we will also look at the aspect of energy community together with renovation of buildings. So it's also a very interesting aspect. So if you want to join on Friday, you can still, I think, sign up for this event. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. Thank you.